Right now, there's a 1 in 25 chance that someone in your immediate circle is a psychopath. Not the Hollywood version with the knife and the creepy smile. I'm talking about the charming coworker who somehow always gets promoted, the charismatic friend who leaves chaos in their wake, or the romantic partner who makes you question your own sanity. And here's what will terrify you. They're not just randomly destructive. Every move they make is calculated. Every word is chosen for maximum psychological impact. They're playing a game you don't even know exists, using tactics so sophisticated that even trained psychologists can be fooled. But I'm about to expose their entire playbook. These 7 tactics are used by every psychopath, and once you learn to recognize them, their power over you completely evaporates. In fact, they're so predictable in their methods that you'll start seeing the patterns everywhere. Warning: what you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you see people. You can't unknow this information. The uncomfortable truth. Dr. Robert Hare, the world's leading expert on psychopathy, spent 40 years studying these individuals. What he discovered will make your blood run cold. Psychopaths don't see other people as human beings. To them, you're nothing more than an object to be used, a resource to be extracted, a toy to be played with until it breaks. But here's the part that will blow your mind. They're not mentally ill in the traditional sense. Their brains are simply wired differently. The areas responsible for empathy, guilt, and genuine emotion are practically dormant. They're like emotional, colorblind people navigating a world of feelings they can't experience but have learned to mimic perfectly. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote about these individuals 500 years ago without knowing the psychology behind them. He called them lions and foxes, people who use both force and cunning to get what they want, completely unconstrained by moral considerations. And the most terrifying part, they're often incredibly successful. CEOs, politicians, surgeons, lawyers, professions that reward ruthless decision-making often attract psychopaths. They rise to positions of power because they're willing to do things that normal people's conscience won't allow. But today, you're going to learn exactly how they operate, and more importantly, how to destroy their ability to manipulate you. Tactic number 1, love bombing. The first tactic every psychopath uses is love bombing, and it's designed to completely bypass your rational mind and hook you emotionally before you realize what's happening. Picture this. You meet someone new, and they're absolutely fascinated by you. They hang on your every word. They remember details about your life that even close friends forget. They shower you with compliments, gifts, attention. They make you feel like the most special person in the world. Your brain is flooded with dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals released during addiction. And that's not an accident. They're literally creating a chemical dependency in your brain. But here's what's really happening. They're not falling for you. They're studying you. Every conversation is a data-gathering session. They're learning your insecurities, your dreams, your triggers, your weaknesses. They're building a psychological profile that they'll use to control you later. Dr. Hare calls this the mask of sanity. They're performing the role of the perfect partner, friend, or colleague, but there's nothing genuine behind it. It's all calculation. The counterattack. Real love develops slowly and consistently. It doesn't feel like a drug hit. It feels like coming home. When someone love bombs you, ask yourself, what do they actually know about me? And what do I actually know about them? Usually, you'll realize it's all surface-level intensity with no real substance. Set this boundary immediately. I prefer to take relationships slowly. Watch their reaction. Normal people will respect this. Psychopaths will push harder, get frustrated, or try to make you feel like you're being unreasonable. Tactic number 2, gaslighting. Once they have you emotionally hooked, psychopaths move to their most insidious tactic, gaslighting. This is psychological warfare designed to make you question your own memory, perception, and sanity. It starts small. They'll deny saying something they clearly said. I never promised that. They'll rewrite history in subtle ways. You're remembering that wrong. They'll contradict your feelings. You're being too sensitive. They'll question your mental state. You seem confused lately. Here's the diabolical brilliance of gaslighting. It works by exploiting your natural human tendency to trust and seek harmony. When there's a conflict between their version of reality and yours, your brain naturally tries to reconcile the difference. And since they're so confident and consistent in their lies, you start to doubt yourself instead of them. Over time, this creates what psychologists call learned helplessness. You stop trusting your own instincts and become dependent on them to tell you what's real. They become your reality filter, which gives them complete control over your perception of the world. The psychological impact is devastating. Victims of sustained gaslighting often develop anxiety, depression, and even symptoms resembling PTSD. They lose confidence in their ability to make decisions or trust their own judgment. The counterattack. Start keeping a record. Write down conversations, save text messages, document incidents. When they try to gaslight you, you have proof. Actually, I have it written down right here. Trust your gut immediately. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Psychopaths are skilled liars, but they're not perfect. Your subconscious picks up on inconsistencies that your conscious mind might miss. Most importantly, maintain relationships with people who validate your reality. Gaslighting only works in isolation. When you have trusted friends or family members who confirm your version of events, the psychopath's reality distortion loses its power. Tactic number 3, triangulation. The third tactic is triangulation, and this is where psychopaths become truly masterful at psychological manipulation. They deliberately create jealousy, competition, and insecurity by bringing other people into your relationship dynamic. They'll constantly mention their ex who still calls them. They'll compare you to their friends. They'll flirt with others in front of you, then act like you're being paranoid when you notice. But here's the psychological genius behind triangulation. It triggers your evolutionary fear of abandonment. Your brain perceives a threat to your relationship status and floods your system with stress hormones. You become hypervigilant, desperate to prove your worth, willing to compete for their attention. In work environments, they'll pit colleagues against each other. John was saying some interesting things about your project. They become the center of drama while appearing to be innocent bystanders. The goal isn't just to make you jealous, it's to keep you emotionally off balance and constantly seeking their validation. When you're worried about losing them, you're not thinking clearly about whether you actually want to keep them. Robert Greene writes about this in The Art of Seduction. Creating artificial scarcity increases perceived value. Psychopaths understand this instinctively. The counterattack. Recognize triangulation for what it is, a manipulation tactic, not a reflection of your worth or their desirability. When someone consistently brings other people into your relationship to create drama, that's not passion, that's psychological abuse. Call it out directly. It seems like you're trying to make me jealous. Why would you want to do that in a healthy relationship? Watch their reaction. They'll usually deny it, deflect, or try to turn it back on you. Remember, in healthy relationships, your partner makes you feel secure, not insecure. If someone is deliberately creating doubt about your place in their life, they're not someone worth fighting for. Tactic number 4, the pity play. Here's a tactic that catches even psychologically aware people off guard. The pity play. Psychopaths are masters at weaponizing your empathy against you. They'll tell you heartbreaking stories about their past, abusive childhoods, unfair treatment by previous partners, being misunderstood by everyone else. They position themselves as tragic figures who just need someone who truly understands them. And here's why this works so well. Empathetic people have an almost compulsive need to help wounded individuals. Your mirror neurons fire when you hear about their pain, making you feel like you need to rescue them. But here's what's really happening. They're not sharing genuine vulnerability. They're conducting a psychological manipulation designed to make you feel responsible for their emotional well-being. Once you take on that responsibility, they own you. The stories are often exaggerated or completely fabricated. Dr. Hare found that psychopaths are pathological liars who can pass polygraph tests because they don't experience the physiological stress that normally accompanies deception. Notice the pattern. In their stories, they're always the victim. Nothing is ever their fault. Every failed relationship, every lost job, every conflict, it was always someone else's failing, never theirs. The counterattack. Empathy is beautiful, but it needs boundaries. Ask yourself, are they taking responsibility for any part of their problems, or are they always the victim? Pay attention to how they talk about their exes and former friends. If everyone in their past was crazy, abusive, or didn't understand them, that's a massive red flag. The common denominator in all their failed relationships is them. Real trauma survivors are usually hesitant to share their stories. They don't lead with their pain as a way to bond with new people. When someone immediately shares deep, tragic information, ask yourself what they're trying to accomplish with that disclosure. Tactic number 5, hot and cold conditioning. The fifth tactic is intermittent reinforcement, also known as the hot and cold treatment. This is perhaps the most psychologically damaging technique psychopaths use because it creates genuine addiction-like patterns in their victims. Here's how it works. They alternate between periods of intense attention and affection, hot, with periods of distance, criticism, or cruelty, cold. One day, they're texting you constantly, making plans, acting like you're the center of their universe. The next day, they're cold, distant, barely acknowledging your existence. This triggers what psychologists call an intermittent reinforcement schedule, the most powerful form of behavioral conditioning known to science. It's the same principle that makes gambling addictive. You never know when the next reward is coming, so you keep playing the game. Your brain becomes obsessed with figuring out what you did wrong during the cold periods and what you did right during the hot periods. You start walking on eggshells, constantly trying to manage their mood, desperate to get back to the good times. The psychological impact is devastating. You develop what researchers call trauma bonding. You become addicted to the relief you feel when they're nice to you again. The intensity of that relief is proportional to the pain they caused during the cold period. Victims often describe this as feeling like they're going crazy. One moment they're convinced the person loves them. The next moment they feel completely rejected. The emotional whiplash is designed to keep you confused and emotionally dependent. The counterattack. Recognize that healthy relationships have consistent warmth with natural variations in intensity. They don't swing wildly between paradise and hell. When someone starts the hot and cold pattern, don't try to figure out what you did wrong. Ask yourself, do I want to be in a relationship where I'm constantly managing someone else's unpredictable emotions? Set this boundary. I need consistency in how I'm treated. These extreme mood swings aren't acceptable to me. A normal person will work on this. A psychopath will blame you for their behavior or tell you that you're being too demanding. Most importantly, don't mistake intensity for love. The highs feel so good because the lows are so bad. That's not passion, that's psychological manipulation. Tactic number 6, projection and blame shifting. The sixth tactic is projection and blame shifting. Psychopaths are masters at making their victims responsible for the psychopath's own behavior and emotions. They'll accuse you of exactly what they're doing. If they're cheating, they'll accuse you of being unfaithful. If they're lying, they'll question your honesty. If they're manipulating you, they'll claim you're trying to control them. This serves multiple psychological purposes. It puts you on the defensive. It deflects attention from their behavior, and it makes you question your own actions and motives. They're also experts at blame shifting. Nothing is ever their fault. When they hurt you, it's because you made them do it. When they fail at something, it's because you didn't support them enough. When they have an emotional outburst, it's because you triggered them. The language they use is revealing. You make me feel. You force me to. If you hadn't, then I wouldn't have. They literally rewrite causality to make you responsible for their choices. This is especially damaging to empathetic people because you naturally examine your own behavior when someone is upset. You think, maybe I did do something wrong. Maybe I am being controlling, selfish, unreasonable. Over time, this creates a psychological dynamic where you're constantly apologizing, constantly trying to be better, constantly taking responsibility for problems you didn't create. The counterattack. Remember this fundamental truth: you are not responsible for other people's emotions or actions. Adults are responsible for managing their own feelings and choosing their own behavior. When someone tries to blame you for their actions, respond with, "I'm not responsible for your choices. You chose to do that." Don't get pulled into defending yourself against false accusations. Pay attention to the language patterns. Healthy people say, "I feel hurt when," or "I chose to do this because." Manipulators say, "You made me," or "I had no choice because you." Practice this phrase. That's your interpretation, not my intention. Use it whenever they try to tell you what you meant or what you were trying to do. Tactic number 7, isolation and dependency. The 7th and most dangerous tactic is isolation and dependency creation. Psychopaths systematically separate you from your support system and make you dependent on them for validation, financial security, or emotional stability. It starts subtly. They'll make negative comments about your friends and family. Your sister seems jealous of our relationship. Your friends don't really understand you like I do. Your parents are too controlling. They create conflicts between you and your loved ones. They'll accidentally cause drama at family gatherings, or they'll share private information that damages your other relationships. Gradually, you find yourself seeing your friends less, talking to your family less, making decisions based on what they want rather than what you want. They become your primary source of social interaction, emotional support, and sometimes financial stability. This is the most dangerous phase because once you're isolated, all the other tactics become exponentially more effective. There's no one to reality check their gaslighting, no one to point out their manipulation, no one to offer you perspective or support. The isolation also serves another purpose. It makes leaving much more difficult. Where will you go? Who will you turn to? They've systematically dismantled your support network, making you feel like you have no options. Dr. Hare notes that this is classic predatory behavior. Predators separate their prey from the herd before attacking. Social isolation makes you vulnerable and dependent. The counterattack. Maintain your relationships fiercely. If someone consistently tries to come between you and the people you love, that's a massive red flag. Healthy partners encourage your other relationships. When they criticize your friends or family, ask yourself, are these criticisms valid, or are they trying to isolate me? Usually, the criticisms are either exaggerated or focus on the fact that your loved ones don't understand or don't like the psychopath. Set this boundary. My relationships with my friends and family are important to me. I won't tolerate anyone trying to damage those relationships. If you find yourself having to choose between a romantic partner and your entire support system, choose your support system. People who love you want you to have multiple sources of love and support in your life. The psychological warfare behind it all. Now that you understand the individual tactics, let me show you the terrifying psychology behind how they all work together. Psychopaths understand something that most people don't. Human beings are fundamentally social creatures who need validation, connection, and a sense of reality shared with others. Every single one of these tactics attacks those basic psychological needs. Love bombing creates artificial intimacy and dependency. Gaslighting undermines your sense of reality. Triangulation threatens your sense of security. The pity play exploits your empathy. Hot and cold conditioning creates addiction-like attachment. Projection makes you doubt yourself. Isolation removes your reality-checking resources. Together, these tactics create what psychologists call learned helplessness and complex trauma. You become so confused, so emotionally dependent, and so isolated that leaving feels impossible even when you know something is wrong. Carl Jung wrote about the shadow, the dark aspects of human nature that we repress. Psychopaths don't repress their shadow. They've embraced it completely. They understand the dark side of human psychology because they live there. But here's what they don't understand: authentic power. They can only feel powerful by making others feel powerless. They can only feel important by making others feel small. They can only feel in control by making others feel helpless. When you understand their game, when you can see their tactics clearly, their power evaporates. They're like magicians whose tricks have been exposed. The magic only works when you don't know how it's done. The recovery process. If you're recognizing these patterns in your own life, first understand that it's not your fault. Psychopaths specifically target empathetic, caring, successful people. You weren't chosen because you're weak. You were chosen because you have qualities they want to exploit. The recovery process involves several stages. Recognition phase. You start to see the patterns and realize you're being manipulated. This often comes with feelings of shock, anger, and self-doubt. Reality reconstruction phase. You begin to trust your own perceptions again and rebuild your sense of what's real. This is where documentation and trusted friends become crucial. Boundary enforcement phase. You start setting and maintaining boundaries, often for the first time in the relationship. This is when psychopaths typically escalate their manipulation attempts. Detachment phase. You emotionally disconnect from their approval and disapproval. Their opinions stop affecting your self-worth. Liberation phase. You either successfully establish a healthier dynamic rare with true psychopaths, or you leave the relationship entirely. The most important thing to understand: you cannot change a psychopath. They are not broken people who need love to heal. They are predators who use your desire to help against you. Dr. Hare is very clear about this. There is no effective treatment for psychopathy. They don't want to change because they don't believe anything is wrong with them. In their mind, they're just better at the game of life than everyone else. The counter-psychology. Here's the advanced level information that will completely neutralize their power over you. Psychopaths are actually quite predictable and in many ways primitive in their psychology. They have a few core drives: power, control, stimulation, and winning. Everything they do serves one of these drives. When you understand this, their behavior becomes boringly predictable. They also have core vulnerabilities. They need constant validation. They can't handle being ignored. They're terrified of being exposed. And they have no tolerance for boredom. The gray rock method. Become as uninteresting as possible. Give them nothing to work with. Respond to their drama with calm indifference. Don't react to their provocations. They feed off emotional reactions, so starve them of that fuel. The information diet. Never give them personal information they can use against you. Keep conversations surface level and factual. Don't share your fears, dreams, insecurities, or plans with them. The boundary wall. Set clear, non-negotiable boundaries and enforce them immediately and consistently. Don't explain, justify, or defend your boundaries. Just enforce them. The documentation strategy. Keep records of everything. Screenshot texts, save emails, write down incidents. When they try to gaslight you, you have proof of what really happened. The support network strategy. Maintain strong relationships with people who know your true character. Their validation will counter the psychopath's attempts to make you doubt yourself. The ultimate truth. Here's the truth that will set you free. Psychopaths are not superior beings with special powers. They're emotionally stunted individuals who never developed the capacity for genuine human connection. They mistake fear for respect, compliance for love, and control for power. They live in a world where every relationship is transactional, every interaction is strategic, and every person is either useful or disposable. In many ways, they're to be pitied. They will never experience genuine love, authentic friendship, or true intimacy. They're incapable of the deep satisfaction that comes from meaningful relationships and personal growth. But pity doesn't mean tolerance. You can understand their psychological limitations without accepting their abusive behavior. Compassion doesn't require you to be a victim. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved." But he was wrong about something crucial. It's better to be respected than either feared or loved. And respect can only be earned through authentic strength, consistent character, and genuine care for others. When you develop these qualities, psychopaths can't touch you. They can't manipulate what they can't understand, and they can't understand authentic power. The protection protocol. Moving forward, here's your protection protocol against psychopathic manipulation. The 30-day rule. Don't make any major decisions or commitments to someone you've known for less than 30 days. Love bombing works by creating artificial urgency. Slow things down. The consistency check. Pay attention to the gap between their words and actions over time. Psychopaths are great actors in the short term, but can't maintain the performance indefinitely. The third-party perspective. Regularly check in with trusted friends or family about your relationships. They can see patterns that you might miss when you're emotionally involved. The gut trust protocol. When something feels wrong, investigate further instead of dismissing your instincts. Your subconscious mind processes micro-expressions and behavioral inconsistencies that your conscious mind might miss. The exit strategy. Always maintain your independence, financial, emotional, and social. Don't become so dependent on someone that leaving becomes impossible. The education commitment. Continue learning about manipulation tactics and psychological abuse. Knowledge is your best defense. The transformation promise. When you master this knowledge, something powerful happens. You become psychologically untouchable, not closed off or cynical, but immune to manipulation. You develop what I call authentic confidence, self-assurance that doesn't depend on other people's validation. You know your worth, you trust your perceptions, and you maintain your boundaries regardless of how others react. People sense this quality immediately. Psychopaths, in particular, can detect it like radar. They know instinctively that you're not suitable prey, and they move on to easier targets. But the real gift is this. You become capable of deeper, more authentic relationships. When you're not worried about being manipulated, when you're not walking on eggshells or trying to manage someone else's emotions, you can show up fully as yourself. You attract people who appreciate your authenticity rather than those who want to exploit your vulnerabilities. Your relationships become based on mutual respect and genuine connection, rather than fear and control. The final warning. Before we end, I need to give you a crucial warning. If you're in a relationship with someone who uses multiple tactics from this list, do not confront them directly about being a psychopath. Psychopaths can become dangerous when they feel exposed or threatened. If you're planning to leave such a relationship, do it safely and strategically. Reach out to domestic violence resources, maintain your support network, and have a safety plan. Remember, your safety is more important than closure, explanation, or trying to make them understand how they hurt you. They already know how they hurt you. That was the point. If you're in immediate danger, contact local law enforcement or a domestic violence hotline. This knowledge is meant to protect you, not put you at risk. The game ends the moment you refuse to play by their rules. If this video helped you recognize manipulation tactics in your own life, then subscribe for more content on psychological protection and authentic power. Share your story in the comments if you feel safe doing so. Your experience might help someone else recognize their own situation. Thanks for watching this video.